devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hari Hari Bo. Good morning, devotees. Thank you for coming. We'll be reading the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam and studying the verse from Canto 2, Chapter 3, verse 15. So we'll start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna. I just want to make one note that last time I gave the class from the temple room, which was on Saturday, the devotees who were on Zoom apparently had a bit of an issue. I wasn't able to hear them when they wanted to chant the verse. So sometimes we have a little bit of a challenge with the technical aspects of giving the class, and I appreciate the patience that the devotees have in any technical issues that we may have. Although today, as you can see, I'm not giving the class from the temple room, so I should be able to hear just fine. And I will do call and response as normal, and the devotees on Zoom will, after I do it 3 times, will then be able to chant the verse. Thank you. So we'll start. Savai Bhagavato Raja Handaveyo Maharata Bala Kridana Kai Kridan Krishna Kridam Yaadade. Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandevyo Maharataha Balakridan Kaikridan Krishna Kridham Jaadade. Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandevyo Maharataha Balakridan Kahai Kridan Krishna Kridam Yaadade. Devotees, would anyone like to chant the verse?
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharatha Bala Kridana Kai Kridan Krishna Kridanya Adate. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharatha Bala Kridan Kai Kridan Krishna Kridamaya Adade. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharatha Balakridana Kai Kridan Krishna Kridamya Adade.
Jai.
Savai Bhagavato Raja Pandaveyo Maharatha Bala Kirana Kaya Kridam Krishna Kridam Ya Adade. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll do the word for word. Sa, he, vai, certainly, Bhagavata, a great devotee of the Lord, Raja, Maharaj Pariksit, Pandaveyaha, grandson of the Pandavas, Maharata, a great fighter, Bala, well, a child, Kridanakai, with play dolls, Kridan, playing, Krishna, Lord Krishna, Kridang, activities, Ya, who, Adade, accepted. Translation. Maharaj Pariksit, the grandson of the Pandavas, was from his very childhood a great devotee of the Lord. Even while playing with dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of the family deity. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita 6.41, it is stated that even a person who has failed in the proper discharge of yoga practice is given a chance to take birth in the house of devout brahmanas or in the houses of rich men like Kshatriya kings or rich merchants. But Maharaj Pariksit was more than that because he had been a great devotee of the Lord since his previous birth. And as such, he took his birth in an imperial family of the Kurus, and especially that of the Pandavas. So from the very beginning of his childhood, he had the chance to know intimately the devotional service of Lord Krishna in his own family. The Pandavas, all being devotees of the Lord, certainly venerated family deities in the royal palace for worship. Children who appear in such families fortunately generally imitate such worship of the deities, even in the way of childhood play. By the grace of Lord Sri Krishna, we had the chance of being born in a Vaishnava family. And in our childhood, we imitated the worship of Lord Krishna by imitating our father. Our father encouraged us in all respects to observe all functions, such as the Rath Yatra and Dol Yatra ceremonies, and he used to spend money liberally for distributing prasad to us children and our friends. Our spiritual master, who also took his birth in a Vaishnava family, got all inspirations from his Vaishnava father, Thakur Bhaktivinod. That is the way of all lucky Vaishnava families. The celebrated Mirabai was a staunch devotee of Lord Krishna as the great lifter of Govardhan Hill. The life history of many such devotees is almost the same because there is always symmetry between the early lives of all great devotees of the Lord. According to Jiva Goswami, Maharaj Pariksit must have heard about the childhood pastimes of Lord Krishna at Vrindavan, for he used to imitate the pastimes with his young playmates. According to Sridhar Swami, Maharaj Pariksit used to imitate the worship of the family deity by elderly members. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti also confirms the viewpoint of Jiva Goswami. So accepting either of them, Maharaj Pariksit was naturally inclined to Lord Krishna from his very childhood. He might have imitated either of the above mentioned activities, and all of them established his great devotion from his very childhood, a symptom of a Mahabhagavat. Such Mahabhagavatas are called Nitya Siddhas, or souls liberated from birth. But there are also others who may not be liberated from birth, but who develop a tendency for devotional service by association. And they are called sadhana siddhas. There is no difference between the two in the ultimate issue. And so the conclusion is that everyone can become a sadhana siddha, a devotee of the Lord, simply by associating with pure devotees. The concrete example is our great spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni. In his previous life, he was simply a boy of a maidservant, but through association with great devotees, he became a devotee of the Lord in his own standard, unique in the history of devotional service. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Sva Padantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vikasha Swami Ti Namaste Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pachalini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatadine Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before beginning, I would like to ask for blessings and permissions from all the senior devotees and Vaishnavas in attendance and around the whole universe to help me share the message of the Parampara in some way to help the devotees come closer to Krishna. Thank you for coming this morning. I am very pleased to have the opportunity to speak on this verse. There are some great points that so much actually has been said on this verse. Prabhupada, whenever there's a verse that I'm doing for a class, the first thing I do is check to see if Prabhupada gave a lecture on it. And when he does, it makes giving the class so much easier because you can pull from his divine wisdom and utilize it in sharing the knowledge. So Prabhupada did give a few different lectures on this verse, and he took a few different angles on it. And the purport as well has a few different angles in relation to just the verse itself, which, I'll read it again just so that we can remind ourselves. Maharaj Pariksit, the grandson of the Pandavas, from his very early childhood, a great devotee of the Lord. Even while playing with dolls, he used to worship Lord Krishna by imitating the worship of the family deity. And then, so we have the obvious points here, which is, this great devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Pariksit, and he's able to perform devotional service from a very early life, a very early age, and do that just by playing with dolls. And we'll get into the simplicity of this process of devotional service. But first, the first point I kind of want to get into is this concept of the two sides of the Nitya Siddha and the Sadhana Siddha, which is very interesting. That there seems to be, as described by Srila Prabhupada and here in this verse, that there's those living entities who come to this material world who are eternally conditioned, and those that are eternally liberated. And the purpose for those living entities that are coming to this material world, which are eternally liberated souls, known as Nitya Siddhas, are here to help guide the conditioned souls, such as ourselves, myself, the Sadhana Siddhas, out of ignorance back to our natural position and our connection with Krishna. And the interesting point about this is that, as it's described here by Srila Prabhupada in the purport, that at the ultimate point, those eternally liberated souls and those at one time conditioned souls, the sadhana siddhas. At the ultimate point, there's no difference between the two, which is interesting because, we can consider that, one second, that we see so much ignorance from the living entities and so much confusion and lack of understanding of our actual position in the human form of life, what to speak of all of the other forms of life. But what we can really get here is this hope and this positive understanding that no matter where we are, our opportunity to become perfect, just as great as those eternally conditioned souls, is always available to us. And we can actually become in a completely liberated soul at the highest level, just like the example is given, the great spiritual master in our line, Narada Muni, who was the son of a maidservant. So, and from my understanding, what that really means is that at the time, I've heard it said like this, and maybe it's a little bit harsh or crude to say, but he was kind of the son of almost like a prostitute, maybe, or somebody who's like a woman who is, I think the term prostitute is understood a little bit differently as it's described by Srila Prabhupada and things like that. But it's a woman that had a child without the father being around, and he was just a boy and came in contact with the great devotees of the Lord, and just by taking prasad, gradually elevated himself to the highest position. So this gives us hope. This gives us hope in our ability to make progress, because as we currently sit, I know myself that we are in a conditioned state of life. And another major point that Prabhupada makes in this regard is that there's two sides to the conditioned state of the jiva. There is what is to be understood, and it's in, I believe it's Sanskrit. There's what's understood to be, now maybe this is similar in like Hindi, so those of you who speak Hindi or I know that's also Bengali, there's bhava roga and bhava ashawadi. So in the conditioned state, so we'll just discuss these two sides. Of course, like there's always this dichotomy in most of the spiritual discussion of like the positive and the negative, or the it and the not it, where you have like sat and asat, gyan and agyan. So this is similar to that, like the two sides where we have bhava rog and bhava shawadi. So I'll describe what these two are. And Prabhupada makes mention of this in many places, specifically in regards to this whole conditioned state, where bhava rog, bhava in this context means to become. So in the conditioned state, and it's like we're in a diseased condition. This is the bhava rog, like we are becoming something. We are entering into the material atmosphere. And as soon as we enter, we are, as sadhana siddhas, as conditioned souls, we are diseased. And this is something that we don't recognize. And this is the covering and the illusion that just having a body is a diseased condition, because this body itself is just a vehicle for growing old, filling up with some type of, growing, multiplying, dwindling, but it's a disease. And that's what this bhava roga means. That if we understand that the actual conditioned state that we are in is not a state of, we speak of health, we speak of trying to make the most of what we have in this material world. And yes, we can understand that there's a level of health that we can have, especially if we're trying to perform devotional service. But the actual position that the conditioned soul is in is to be stuck in these bodies that are full of disease and ultimately vehicles for death. Now, that sounds kind of like depressing or maybe a little bit pessimistic. And on one side, it is, and we should recognize the position that we're in and be real about it. But we also understand that just because we're in this position doesn't mean that it is the only position. There is a position of eternal bliss and happiness, and that is our natural position. Our natural position is Sat Chit Ananda, as described in the Vedic scriptures, that we are eternal, full of bliss, and full of knowledge. But because of our desire and our attempts to misuse our free will, we have come into this position of the material energy. Now, what is the next piece? The other side of it is, because if this is where the compassion and the mercy of these Nitya Siddhas is coming to teach us and guide us and direct us out of the ignorance and out of this disease conditioned state into a state of pure knowledge and pure bliss and pure happiness, because that's ultimately what we're seeking. So the other side of this Bhava Rog, which the Bhava Rog means, again, you're taking birth again and again and again. Now, the Bhava Ashawadi means the medicine for this becoming, the medicine for entering into this material world. And that is what the great souls are coming to give us, is this Ashawadi, which really means like medicine, the medicine for what we are, for the disease that we are afflicted with. And the disease that we are afflicted with, as described here, is literally taking birth. Because as we've heard so many times, this, what are the four real problems of life? Birth, death, old age, and disease. All of us have already taken birth. Here we are, right? We're all working towards old age, some sort of disease, and ultimately death. This is the disease condition. And what is the medicine that they have brought, that they have come to bring us, that is the antidote to our disease condition? If we really want to be understanding a healthy position of life, instead of trying to only focus on maintaining our healthy position as doing our gym routines and eating organic food, and okay, that's great, that's fine, but there's only so much mileage on our car that we're going to get no matter what we do to it. And we know that at the end of this position, at the end of the life of this vehicle that we have, this thing is going to be ending up being disintegrated, and the eternal soul that we are is going to go somewhere next. So there's a medicine that was brought to us, and there's a few verses that go along with what this medicine is. And there's a specifically a song that I absolutely love, and most of those who have been around the movement for a little while. And if you haven't really studied this song or read this song, it's by Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who was also mentioned in this purport. But I just want to make a mention of this song, which actually talks about this Ashawadi, which is in Bengali also is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it just right, but it's like Ashawadi. But the song is, as we know, just want to pull it up. Those of us, this is a very wonderful song. It is Jeev Jago, right? So most of us know this beginning verse, because it's like when we are trying to wake someone up, we say Jeev Jago, right? Wake up, sleeping souls. Gorachande Bole, Gorachande Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gorachanda Bole. He's saying, wake up. Kota Nidra Jao Maya Pisha Tere Kole. What is that? How long will you sleep in the lap of the witch called Maya. Pisha Chire Kole. So this song, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is writing, Jeev Jago, wake up, wake up. Okay, so it goes on. But it gets to this point, the fourth stanza of the verse. Anichi Ashaudi Maya, Nashi Bharo Lagi, Hari Nama Maha Mantra Lao Tumi Magi. What does that mean? I have brought the medicine. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I have brought the medicine. That's Ashaudi. I have brought that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. This is the we are suffering in this bhava rog, this existence. I have brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. Take this, what is it? Take this Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So what is the medicine that we have been given to escape this disease condition, to gain the ultimate health? It is this Maha Mantra, and it has been given to us in this merciful incarnation of Krishna in this age of Kali, so that we can actually find what we're seeking. And of course, it takes intelligence, and it takes also, there's a verse that Prabhupada quotes in relation to this also that has the same kind of, it's in the same vein, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.1.4, which is basically what is this medicine? It is the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So when that is performed in the parampara system, right? So when we're in the parampara system, what is the parampara system? It means one after another. It means we are glorifying the Supreme Lord, not on our own, not just making things up out of our own mind and coming up with something. We are following the direction of the great souls and taking it in the line of disciplic succession that comes directly from the Krishna himself, giving perfect knowledge. So glorification of the Supreme Personality, this is the exact verse that I'm reading right now. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine. There's that Ashaudi. Description of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? Of course, the Bhagavatam uses heavy language in many verses, and this heavy language, when taken out of context, can again be a little bit harder, might give people cause for alarm. But when we understand the basis for the compassion that is actually at the core of the message, then we can recognize that this heavy language is utilized to help us come out of illusion. And we're floating along, and we think that everything is okay. It's like a child who is running towards the edge of a cliff, flying a kite or something, and they don't see that they're running toward the edge of a cliff. So sometimes you might be at a far distance, and you're yelling and you're screaming, and you're not just gonna like idly say something quiet. Like, you want to help them, stop them from falling off the cliff. So sometimes heavy language is used, but it's for compassion. So what is this medicine? It is the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in this age, what is the glorification that we have been directed to utilize? It is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's interesting, this the end of this verse that I just read, 10.1.4, this is like, those who are glorifying the Lord is so like those who are doing it are the ones who are it's relished by those who are no longer interested in false temporary glorification of the cosmic manifestation. So like in the conditioned state, we're like really allured and we're enamored by this cosmic manifestation, which has so many different types of presentations, right? And there's the cosmic manifestation, which we, in our small conditioned minds, we can't even really understand that, but we can look at simple things like our cell phone or our social media or, you know, the news media or something like that, and think that this material world is just so great and that we're going to be able to, you know, extract little juice drops of pleasure out of it. But as we see, like, to really, those who are ready to glorify the Lord have to come to the position of recognizing that that's all false, that it's temporary, and that ultimately it's not going to lead us to the real happiness that we're seeking. So, and then this point where in this verse here, it talks about, you know, who will cease hearing this. Actually, the word in the verse in this last sentence, therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self. The Sanskrit word, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it means both butcher or someone who is killing themselves, which is interesting that that's like the same word. So that's why both are mentioned here, that it's either a butcher or someone who is killing our own self. But ultimately, if we are considering and thinking that we're going to find happiness in this material world, we are killing ourselves, because our true self is being covered over, and we ultimately aren't going to find happiness there. So that's the point here. We have these two sides. Okay, we have the eternally conditioned, the eternally not conditioned, liberated, and at the topmost point, we as conditioned living entities, sadhana siddhas, can attain the highest value in this life just as equal to those who are eternally liberated. And those eternally liberated souls that they come here to help us come out of this diseased condition that we're in, and we should meditate, or at least keep that. It's easy to be allured and pulled into the material energy. We've done this for so many lifetimes. It is, and this is the next point I'm going to get to in relation to what happens when we don't necessarily make the progress, or we fall back after taking devotional service. But we've come to this position that we're starting to realize that, you know, we are relishing this glorification of the Supreme Lord. So we've like entered into this new dimension as conditioned souls after so many lifetimes of suffering and trying to enjoy. So we have these tendencies and these, you know, I don't know. I mean, tendency, I guess, is the right way. These like attachments, or another way it's said in Sanskrit is anartas. We have anartas. The anartas means another. There's the two sides. What is arta? Art, wealth. Anarta, without wealth, the opposite of wealth. That's what it's described as. That it's in our hearts that, for whatever reason or another, our desire to lord it over material energy, we are attached to these anartas. I didn't prepare this particular story, but it just came to my mind, so I'll say it. There was just in regards to these anartas, and there was a group of spiritualists, and there was one highly advanced spiritualist, and they came in the group of spiritualists who were still trying to, you know, overcome their attachments, went to the highly advanced spiritualists, and they said, how is it that we are still attached to all of these anarthas that we have in our heart? What do we need to do to get rid of them? And the highly advanced spiritualist looked at them, and he just walked over to a tree, and he hugged the tree, held onto the tree really tight, and he looked and he started screaming at the other spiritualist that had asked him the question. And he said, let me go, let me go. He's holding on to the tree himself, and he's screaming to the tree, let me go, let me go, let me go. So this is the position that he was saying, is that we are holding on to our attachments, screaming, let me go, let me go, let me go. So we can at least recognize that this is what we're doing, and we can work through taking this medicine to actually come out of and break down these attachments, because this is a gradual process. The process of devotional service is not, in some cases, it can be almost instantaneous, but, and Srila Prabhupada has made the mention, and we know this, that it only takes a minute to become Krishna conscious. You can, in a moment you can become Krishna conscious, but it's also described that this is a gradual process. So we should not have discouraged feelings if we are not making whatever progress our mind thinks that we should make, because ultimately we are not in a position to really judge ourselves. And this brings me to the next point, which is that there, and the point in the beginning of this purport, chapter 6, Bhagavad Gita, about what happens when we fail to reach the ultimate goal in our spiritual life. Arjuna is faced with this in chapter 6, and he brings this doubt to Krishna. After, if those of you who are familiar with it, it's the chapter title is Dhyana Yoga. And in the beginning of throughout the first part of the chapter, Krishna is advising Arjuna how to make progress in this yoga system. And he's giving him the directions, this and that, you have to do this, and you have to, curb the mind and this and that. And Arjuna, you can just imagine him like on the battlefield of Kurukshetra listening to Krishna say this. And he comes to a point where he's like, what is he, I can't do this. Essentially he doesn't say it that way, but he says, in 633, the system of yoga you're summarizing appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. So Krishna, or Arjuna, is saying to Krishna, like, look, I don't see how you can do this. And so then the next piece, because he thinks, well, if this is going to be really, really hard, what happens? And this is where the verse that Prabhupada quotes in this purport, he asks, what happens when the transcendentalist doesn't make progress or doesn't reach the ultimate goal? Specifically, he says, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? So he's asking, due to his doubts, what happens if I make effort in this spiritual life, but I don't reach the ultimate goal due to whatever, worldly mindedness, or because this is just on this point, this is something that the mind does. We think, okay, if I do spiritual life, I have to give up my material life. Or like, if I'm putting my effort into this thing, then I'm going to lose out over here. Like I could be working and trying to become a millionaire, or I could, really try to really focus on my family and, be loved by my family or loved by the society. But if I focus on devotional service, I may become an outcast, or I may become poor, or I may be taken advantage of. So at least for myself, there's this doubt in our mind where we try to weigh it from one side or the other. And sometimes this can hinder our full, that in and of itself is like and anartha, that we are thinking somehow we won't be maintained or we're going to lose something if we go all in on devotional service. And there is this process, as we come into Krishna consciousness, of like shedding away these things in the material world that are really actually constraining us. And those constraints are, like we said, we're holding on to the tree, but it's like we just aren't ready to give them up, because somehow in our mind we think like, well, if we give it up, like what's going to happen? We're not, and this is where the point comes in, where it's said so many times, like Krishna is providing everything for everyone. And what, how can we think that if we are fully dedicating ourselves to Krishna consciousness, Krishna is not going to provide for his devotees? And I think it comes in the ultimate situation, it's a question of faith, because we're developing our faith to really fully surrender to Krishna. And again, as we're saying, that's a gradual process. And Arjuna is faced with this. So he asks the question, right? What is the destination? And what does Krishna say? Well, that's what is the point of the beginning verse in this purport, which is, let me just go back. It's, what is it, 640? Yeah, 641. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. But why is that? Righteous people, so that we can continue our process in devotional service, because this is the very important point that we can understand, and it gets into the real asset that we are gaining as yogis, as bhakti yoga practitioners, is that whatever benefit and progress that we're making in our spiritual life is to our permanent credit. And so that's in stark contrast to whatever we're gaining and attaining in this material world, which ultimately will be lost. We can see that, and we know that. Even a materialist will say that at death. There's so many little mantras that they have about, you can't take it with you, or, YOLO, you only live once, or whatever it is that they say. But we're in this illusion that we think that these fallible soldiers, this wife, husband, family, wealth, this and that, we think that these are the things that are going to save us from the jaws of death. But ultimately, those aren't going to give us the real benefit and the real asset. But everything that we do will, in spiritual life, all devotional service is like putting credit into our spiritual bank account, and that can never be lost. That is eternal, and it is picked up in the next life if we fail to make if we fail to reach the highest goal, which would be to go to the spiritual realm and not have to take birth again in this material world. But even if we do have to take birth again in this material world, it is described here, and Prabhupada is mentioning it in the purport, that we will get the situation to come in contact with Krishna consciousness again and to pick up where we left off. And we can see that this is a great explanation for why any of us are even here right now. And that we can see that some people they come to Krishna consciousness and they're like already spiritually advanced, and they know the right questions to ask. Like they don't know anything about Krishna consciousness really, but like they're already seeking. They already have questions in their minds that's like right lined up with the answers that's in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And hold on, thank you. And they clearly have some past connection to Krishna consciousness. So the point that we should really keep in our mind is that we give whatever we can in our current state of consciousness to be connected to spiritual life, give our activities over to spiritual life, devotional service, and that is to our eternal credit. And anything that we're doing in the material world is to our temporary benefit, and ultimately will be creating more karma for us, and will be taking us into a position actually further away from where we really want to go. So if we can utilize our intelligence, listen to the great souls, take the medicine that we are being given to break down the attachments, break up the anartas, we can see, just like Maharaj Parikshit in this verse, he was a child. He was playing with dolls he was reenacting Krishna's pastimes. That in and of itself was devotional service. It was a process. This is the wonderful aspect of Krishna consciousness as well, is that it can be performed in such a simple way. As a child, one can be playing with dolls of Krishna. Like as a little child, you're not going to see a jnani or a hatha yoga specialist. They're not going to reach perfection as a child. It takes years and years. They have to mature. Their body has to come to some position to actually be able to do these things. But with bhakti yoga and this, we can literally, as a child, right from our last birth, whatever process we have or whatever progress we have made, pick that back up, plug it right in, and start making further progress and develop ourselves in Krishna consciousness. And this is, not happening in the material world. Everyone's so concerned with, investments and assets. And, we see men and old men sitting around reading the Wall Street Journal, and they're thinking that they're going to hold on to their wealth forever. What is a good investment? I'm going to give to this person and get a little bit back over here. And no matter how much they get, they still want more. Why is that? Why do they do that? Well, verse 7:15 describes in the Bhagavad Gita why we are thinking. Even though it's obvious that we can't take this with us, it's obvious that we can't take this wealth with us from the material world, we still try. Why is that? In verse 7:15, and I'll read it: Namam duskritino mudha prabhadantie naradhamaha maya prita gyan. That's it right there. Ashuram bhavam ashrita. Those miscreants, again, heavy language, Bhagavatam saying it, not me. Bhagavad Gita saying it. This is Krishna. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. And that's the point. Maya prata gyan. Stolen knowledge. By what? By illusion. They partake in the atheistic nature of demons. They do not surrender unto me. Right? So this is what's happening to us in the conditioned state. Our knowledge gets stolen by illusion, and we can't see the reality that's right in front of us. So those of us who are here on this call and those who are listening to this are at least making some endeavor to break free and to gain the actual jnana, not the agyan. We're trying to not have our knowledge stolen by illusion. We're trying to have it fueled, and we're trying to take the medicine. And medicine can be bitter from time to time, but the Harinam, the Maha Mantra, is even given to us in a way that it's not bitter. It's joyous. We can chant and dance and take prasadam and listen to wonderful stories of Krishna's pastimes. And as a child, play with dolls of Krishna and reenact pastimes. And that's not so bad. We can utilize that medicine to cure our diseased condition. just on this point, in terms of a diseased condition, I was in the last few days, just a little bit of a personal story that my stepfather, who I grew up with, he married my mom when I was like around 13. So from that time onward, he was a very nice man, strong and stout gardener. He's like a truck driver. And then he's, very, very wonderful gentleman to my mother. And they lived together and they were married until she passed away in 2018. He has been living in an old person's kind of center, and he's been generally okay, but just in the last 2 weeks, he was diagnosed with liver cancer. And it just like in the last 2 weeks, what has happened to him, like his physical body has gone from he's in like he's like around 80 years old. Like, so he was, older gentleman already, but like his physical body in just like 2 weeks has gone like aged, like he's like looks like double the age of what he did like a few weeks before. And it's really had me reflect back on like, and now he's in this position where he's like in this very last stage of his life. He can't eat. He's like in and out of consciousness. And he never, was involved in any type of real spiritual activity. So his destination, who knows, but I'll be chanting for him and, giving him prasadam to, give him the most auspicious opportunity. But as it stands, he's in this position at the very end of his life where it's like, he's struggling with this body. And it's like, he's so strong and like physical, and like, it just all gets taken away. And then we're stuck in these bodies, and we have to, and somehow, but there's this process of like exiting the body is so difficult. And when it comes on, it just grips, and you just have to go along for the ride. And then it really becomes apparent, like how difficult this situation is, this disease condition that we're in. So I've been meditating on this and really trying to utilize that understanding that, wow, like I feel, right now I'm healthy and stout and strong, but it's like, who knows, like at any time this is going to be taken away. So don't be complacent about where I'm at, and trying to utilize this situation to remind myself that there's an important mission at hand, and not to be allured too hard by this material energy. So I will finish the class here. If anyone has any thoughts or comments or suggestions, disagreements, anything, just I'll round out, just summarize the points. We shouldn't be discouraged in our devotional service, no matter where we are, as long as we're continuing to move forward in our progress, even if we don't reach the goal, if we fall back. Every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. Don't be discouraged in our devotional service. Why? Because we can always make forward progress, and no matter how conditioned we are, we can reach the highest goal. And we have this process, the Harinam Maha Mantra, the Ashawadi, this diseased condition that we're in, and we have this opportunity to come out of it through the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Devotional service is a simple process. Whatever progress we make in this life will go with us, as we see with Maharaj Pariksit in this verse, so that we can put the energy towards, as much as we can, towards our real asset, which is spiritual life, which will go with us eternally, and not be allured too much by this material energy, so that we can gain peace and happiness in this very life. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. If there's any questions, concerns, thoughts, or ideas, please share them now.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept
Hare
my
Krishna.
obeisance. There's a lot of hold on, let me mute this. There we go.
I'm just going to mute.
There's
I'm going to mute myself.
nice points you made, and I really can you Haribo. Okay, sorry. So there's a lot of nice points you made, and I've meditated on this verse before. Also, the Bible speaks about, approaching the Lord like a child, and I believe because there's the purity there. There's nothing tinged. There's no motivation behind it. And I remember when I was a child and I was praying to God, and the simplicity and innocence behind it, because my mind wasn't so polluted, my consciousness wasn't so polluted with my surroundings, though I came from a very rough background. My approach to the Lord was so pure and so innocent. It's I think you grow older, and then it's like, oh man, I'm in this situation, Lord, please help me. But back then it was like really this pure relationship. I don't know, I very much appreciate that, and then also, a lot of good points, really good class as usual. But I'm sorry to hear about your stepdad. I too know what that's like. I was very healthy, perfect shape. And then in an instant, finding out I had late stage throat cancer and, deteriorating about 40 to 45 pounds, very quickly. And, 2 years later, still having a lot of struggles, but not taking the time left for granted, because again, I don't know, at any point this can change again and I could be back in that state, and whether I have a year, 2 years, 10 years, 40 years, I mean, it can change in an instant. It will, so I think that's the importance of like really taking advantage of this process of devotional service, and to whatever capacity we do have, and it's beautiful and amazing that Srila Prabhupada has brought us this, because it wasn't so long ago that I didn't have this process, and I was completely lost, and I think that's why I've dedicated my foreseeable future to going out and sitting on the street corners and trying to, be that beacon of light for the lost wandering souls, because I do see the urgency in all of us, and I'll be praying for your stepdad. What's his name?
His name is Clifford.
Clifford.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Prabhu, and thank you for all
Thank
you
you.
do. I appreciate it. Haribol.
Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna. And thank you for those points. As Krishna puts us in positions to be able to recognize the futility of this material world, and we can take them as, benefits or as reversals. But as clearly you're doing, you're utilizing whatever reversals you may be getting in this material world to your highest benefit. So thank you for what you're doing. Dronacharya Prabhu, Hare Krishna. I see your hand is up.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank
Hare
you for
Krishna.
the class. Very nicely laid out and understandable. I appreciate it very much, the points. I was thinking as you were talking about, especially the people of this world as we approach older age. You referenced the people that just read the Wall Street Journal every day, thinking about the world, thinking about the stock market, thinking about, and as if it's going to mean anything to them in the next 10 years from now. It'll all be gone for them. And it made me think about the ashram system that's set up in in the Vedic tradition, and how important it is to for this particular purpose. That naturally, when the middle of our lives, when we're in family life and we have so many responsibilities to raise children, and that comes with the responsibility of providing, but at a certain point that ends, and if we don't end it ourselves, we'll continue our attachments, and those attachments will continue to hold on even up to the point of death, and will never truly embrace the true value of life. So it's just it just reminded me the importance of at some point it may be important to think about as we graduate, as we go through a grihasta ashram, as we enter into a place of less responsibility in family life, to transition more of our attention to the service of the Supreme Lord. We should always be throughout our lives as practitioners and devotee, but exclusively. That was kind of my takeaway from what you were saying. Just wanted to share that.
Yes, that's very nice. That's very nice. Yeah, the Varnashram system, this process of going through the Varnas and the ashram. So I mean, in our material world, it's like, the society wants us to keep going until the very end, the fag end of life, as Prabhupada puts it. And that's what the leaders are doing. So, people are seeing and they're imitating it. But what's great about Srila Prabhupada's movement is that he's created this opportunity for us, actually, as we get older, to do service in so many centers around the world, and be able to actually position ourselves in that way. And it definitely takes, it's again getting rid of those anarthas and those things that we're holding on to, which seem to hold for so long. But through the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we can do it, and trying to follow that process. But yes, I mean, there was one devotee who was giving classes, and he would always, and he was in Vrindavan. Actually, his name is Vrindavan Das. He's a astrologer. He's a god brother of yours. And he used to always mention, you should be making plans for we're doing what we have to do now in this material world, but we should also be planning for the future in terms of what it's going to take and how we can organize our life in such a way that we can put our full effort as we move into older age, into devotional service, and into working towards attaining the highest goal of life. So it's we can, and that planning in and of itself is like a devotional service. So it will take some planning, and ultimately Krishna will be the one who clears the pathway for us. But God helps those who help themselves. So thank you for that point, Dronacharya Prabhu. It's good. Anyone else? Okay, 9:00 on the dot. Thank you very much, everyone. Please have a wonderful Krishna conscious day, and see you next time. Vanchakalpatripyascha kripa sindhuvya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Haribol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a wonderful class.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shashi Shekhar.